Although they weren't able to finish off Miami on the highest note ever, in this episode of 32 on 32, I look into Evil Geniuses and why they're one of my biggest potential dark horses going into World Championships. I also had a chance to talk with Coach Revin to kind of get an idea as far as how this new team since Roster Mania has been able to find more success than any iteration of the Evil Geniuses rosters in the past. In this episode coming up. What up, COD fans? Welcome back. Good to see you. IHOLDSHIFT. We're talking Evil Geniuses in this episode, and a very great sit-down interview with Revan. Always a pleasure. He's been a big supporter of the channel, which is impressive, and I think just appalling from my standpoint, just individually, to have somebody with such a great mind for the game like this style of content. So it's going to be interesting, I think, to kind of get your guys' perspective on what Revan has to say about this Evil Geniuses team as they go forward, again, into Pool G, as we take a look at it with OpTic Gaming, Carnage Gaming, and Train Hard Esport. A very dynamic pool with a lot of question marks floating around just about every single team. Not excluded from that conversation, I think, are Evil Geniuses. As you take a look at their roster as a whole, Exotic, Attach, Apathy, JCap, and Accuracy, they've been finding a lot of success across every single game mode. Again, this was a team that struggled in different instances, in different modes at some point in time throughout the entire season. It's this roster that's really finding the fuel and the fuego to move on forward and actually put out in stellar performances. Since this roster has formed, we'll take a look back at this history. Well, the organization as a whole, we'll start there. They were a PLQ team able to get through relatively easily in their pool. Then it was 3 top 16 finishes, which is obviously not what you want, and not the best performances considering how they looked in the divisionals and cross divisionals leading up to those tournaments, but they're able to finish top 10 at Miami, kind of capitalizing off of what has been a very disappointing open event performance throughout the entirety of this season. I want to look specifically, though, at this team since Roster Mania. Again, incredible numbers, 20 and 20 in the hard point with just a slight negative average per differential. And then you look at the Search and Destroy, 18 and 14, a plus differential there in the rounds, and then 10 and 13 in Control, where it's, again, just a slight negative average. But the reason why I blow through those so quickly, put those numbers that you see on screen in comparison to what this team has done throughout the entirety of the season. Their entire totals, cumulative, 30 and 33 in the hard point. So technically before this, they were 10 and 13 in the hard point. Search and Destroy, 22 and 29 is where they're at total. So again, before this, they were 4 and 15 in Search and Destroy. And then Control, 12 and 26 in a total. So they were 2 and 13 in the Control. So this new roster has been an incredible kind of promotion from what we've seen previously from Evil Geniuses, and they turned that into their most successful open event yet, as they got to CWL Miami in the CWL Finals. 3 and 2 is what they were technically in hardpoint when they were at Miami. 3 and 2 in the Search and Destroy as well as in the hardpoint, and a 2-2 in the Control. But the biggest thing is the fact that they came out with positive differentials on every single one of those modes. A plus 32 on the hard point, a plus 0.6 rounds or so on the Search, and a plus 0.5 rounds on the Control. And those were against pretty solid teams. Enigma 6 coming in looked like a pretty solid squad. They're able to take them 3-0. They're able to absolutely smoke UYU in 3. They then drop a very close one versus Reciprocity. It was a 203-250 on the hard point, a 5-6 round 11 on Hacienda. Then they kind of got beat up a little bit on Seaside. And then 100 Thieves, they're able to take to 5. They're able to take a Hacienda hardpoint and a Gridlock Search and Destroy. They would lose just narrowly the Arsenal hardpoint and just narrowly the Gridlock Control. They got beat up a little bit in Game 5, though, on the Hacienda Search and Destroy 2-6. But again, that's all very promising stuff for Evil Geniuses, who are able to take a lot away from it. Now you're looking at 3 weeks where this team has been able to essentially bolster up what they've been kind of bad at, rehearse and kind of reiterate what they're good at, and they're looking like very much so one of the more dynamic and versatile teams coming out of the CWL to get into pools. And they're in a pool where I think, again, everybody is very beatable, or they could potentially finish 4-0, or pardon me, 3-0 in the pool as a whole. For me, it just comes down to, will they finally be able to get over that hurdle that is OpTic Gaming? Again, like I mentioned in the OpTic video, the last time they played each other was in the Anaheim pools, where they did not have the greatest of showing. It was kind of a close match at some points, but it was a 1-3 loss. The time they played before that was just previous to Anaheim, where they kind of got smoked, to be honest, an 0-3 there. And then you have to go all the way back to essentially Fort Worth just after pools, where again it was an 0-3. So this is the best iteration of Evil Geniuses, period. Best roster that they've had, period. And best chance, I think, to have beat OpTic, period. So when it comes down to them potentially getting through the pool, I think you favor Evil Geniuses 100%. And honestly, beyond that, with their ability to take Reciprocity to a close, again, it was only 3 maps, but all 3 maps are relatively close, and take 100 Thieves to 5, and do what they did versus Enigma 6, this is a team that could absolutely finish top 8 or above. That would be impressive, considering, again, you look back at their open events, and it's top 16s across the board with the exception of Miami. I'm excited to see what this team has to offer, and honestly speaking, I think that Evil Geniuses have a very real chance to get through. Now, I did have a chance to sit down and talk with Revan. I wanted you guys to get a more of a lengthier look as far as what Revan had to say about his squad moving forward and how I kind of came to form those opinions in this episode of You Have My Attention. Joining me from Evil Geniuses, I've got the coach of Evil Geniuses, the one, the only. I've got Revan. You have my attention, sir. Let's just get into it. Evil Geniuses, you're in a pretty interesting pool with OpTic, Carnage, and Trainhard. What was your initial reactions upon seeing the pool draw?
Well, obviously, OpTic Gaming, they won an event earlier this year, and even though they had a disappointing Miami, you know those guys are going to turn up turns champs time. So I think that's clear-cut going to be our toughest matchup within the pool. Hopefully that'll be the match for first or second. If you look at the other 2 teams, who do we have? Carnage Gaming and Trainhard Esport. I think Trainhard Esport will probably give us our biggest run for our money. These are some guys who have played in pro leagues in the past. We saw at least Risk and Nache as well. I mean, those are guys that you just can't sleep on. And what I've been saying to my guys pretty much all year long is that there are no such thing as free wins. So when you're going up against teams like this, you have to treat them the same you would any other pro team. If we could do that, if we come into these matches with a healthy mindset, we should be able to handle business. So now, I'm hoping for at least first or second.
You guys have been dealing, I think, out of all the teams out there that have been sitting in the bubble between around that, top 8, or you bottom 8, or you top 8. You guys have been making a lot of, I won't say full sell roster changes, but there have been a lot of significant changes as far as additions and subtractions since the beginning of the year. Can you kind of take me through some of the mindset as far as what Evil Geniuses has looked like from start to finish, and where you are kind of looking at the team right now?
Yeah, sure. So we started the year with Fellow, Gunjar, Royalty, Exotic, and Saints. We got 7th/8th at Vegas. And then for the Pro League qualifier, we got rid of Saints and picked up Vicento. We qualified. We played 2 weeks with that roster, and we were in last place. We had one of the worst records. So obviously changes had to be made after that. We decided to get rid of Bryce and pick up Attach, who's absolutely filthy at this game. So that was obviously a really good pickup. From there, we went to Dallas. We got last place again. We made more changes. We got last place again. We made more changes after that. And then now we are with our current roster of Accuracy, Apathy, Attach, JCap, and Exotic. I think we have a lot of talent on our team. I think our guys are really motivated and driven. But despite all the talent we have, we're still placing last. So I don't think anybody's happy with how kind of this year has went for us. We definitely foresaw us placing better, but look, that's the way the year has been dealt to us. We have 1 event left. It's the most important event. If we do well here, then it could pretty much erase the terrible start we've had up until this point. So that's what we're striving towards. We're striving towards a big finish at champs, and hopefully we can finish out the year strong.
Now, kind of one last question for you. I mean, you guys have been, to be fair, based on the statistics, a pretty solid team across Hardpoint and Search and Destroy. It was Control that really seemed to be like your guys' boon throughout the majority of the year, up until you guys got through Miami and Anaheim before that. What has been the big pivotal success story when it comes to your guys' Control over the last handful of months?
That's a great question. I think by far and away we're the best Arsenal Control team in the game.
I will agree with you. The stats say that too.
But no one will. I mean, I don't think anybody will play us on that map. So we've been working hard at drilling the other Control maps. No, it's a tough question because Controls play out so differently for us in scrims and in online play than they do when it comes to LAN time. Like even with the past rosters we had, statistically throughout our scrims, Control's been our best game mode. And then we get to LAN and things just spiral out of control for us. One thing leads to another. And I think it was at London when we didn't win a single round of Control. We went back and watched it, and we fed streaks to every team in the first round of Control. So that's obviously not a recipe for success. Starting out on a severe back foot like that doesn't help anything. But That's definitely a very important game mode for us. I mean, that's where reverse sweeps happen. That's where, momentum shifts tides in a series. So we're not slacking when it comes to our controlled practice. We know that we've been poor in those game modes, and that's exactly where other teams get the upper hand against us. Like you've been saying, we can hang with other teams in the hard points. We're well versed in search and destroy. It's just these controls that have been hurting us all year long. So, like I said, your previous question, one event left. If there's ever a time to turn around, it's now. And people probably aren't studying our control footage that much, so hopefully we can catch some people off guard.
There you go. If you're not better, just catch them just by the surprise factor. I mean, hey, if it works, it works.
Or I'm praying they play us on Arsenal.
That too, hey, oversights happen every single day of the week. I mean, Heretics played like 2 of their most recent hard points on Hacienda. I don't know how that got through, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. So, Revan, thanks so much for joining me, and it's a pleasure talking to you for a brief moment. Of course, best of luck to you guys at World Champs, and of course, I'm just going to say it because I've been saying in all my videos, I've got you guys as being one of my dark horses to make a run in this tournament. So I'm obviously hoping that for both of our sake that we're correct in that instance.
Hey, let's go. Appreciate the support, and thank you to everybody out there who's been supporting us all year long. We're hoping to make you proud at Call of Duty Championships, and thanks for having me on Shift. I love your content.
Of course, man. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Massive shout outs to Revan. Again, the fact that someone like him supports this channel really does mean a lot, and it kind of blows me away, to be completely honest, that he finds value and he thinks that this content is well served. So big tip of the hat to you, sir, and best of wishes, of course, to you guys. Again, we kind of already framed up what this pool looks like. I didn't get a chance to mention Attach's stats in the previous screen, so again, I want to just give a huge shout out to Attach, who's really been popping off lately, playing that kind of flex role. He's got a 1.16 average rating in the CWL Pro League and a 1.13 average KD, stats provided by codstats.gg. Impressive. And like Revan said, he's been a big catalyst of why this team has found so much success. You build the team around him, and success just seems to be breeded from it, and that's 100% been the case. So high expectations for Evil Geniuses. I think, again, like I mentioned, their ceiling is at least top 8, if not top 6. I actually wouldn't even be surprised to see this team surprise other squads late in the playoffs and maybe even finish top 4. That's a little bit more of a stretch, I think. But I think when it comes down to it, this team, with how they're playing lately, has the opportunity to be that dark horse, find a bunch of upsets, at least in a lot of people's minds, and find a top finish to really capitalize on this year. So that's what I'd be looking out for Evil Geniuses. That's going to conclude this video, though. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, subscribe, ring the notification bell to know when these videos do pop up. And until the next one, keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.